everyone, it's Shari here today, and I am going to be making this fun, fancy birthday box. So I'm using the fancy box die, which you can see I haven't even pulled apart, and then the perfectly plaid rainbow paper. I'm going to be using the large piece for the box and the paper pack for the inside. So I'm going to just cut my pieces apart here. I'm using some wire snips. Please be careful when cutting apart dies because they can be sharp. And I'm cutting a piece of the 12 by 12 plaid paper down to 6 inches so it'll fit through my die cut machine. And I want the outside of the box to be this orthogonal plaid that you see here. And then the inside will be the diagonal. So whatever side of the paper you want to be the outside is the side you want facing up when you cut this die. And I just discovered that Cuttlebug actually has a magnetic cutting mat, so I thought I'd show that to you. When you use this, you place it on top of that A base plate, that white plate. You put your B cutting mat on top of it. It's going to be magnetic through that B cutting mat, so it's going to hold your die in place. And then because that cutting mat has that thickness to it, you're going to want to use a B plate on the top as well, not the C plate that you normally use with a thin steel die like this. So now that I've got my box cut out here, you're going to see that I'm going to start to score or fold rather those score lines that the die cuts, or the die scores, I should say. It doesn't cut. I could have gone ahead and cut out the window that goes in the box as well, and I could have done that at one time, but since I didn't, I wanted to make sure I folded my score lines so I could kind of see where to center it up. But you could have run that through and placed that in there and run it once, since that top piece is actually open. So this is the one I want to use, and I'm going to cut off this excess piece of steel. And please be careful when doing this. As a former eye care professional, I usually snip this under my desk, facing away from everyone and every pet in the room, but I actually happen to have my glasses on today. So safety first, so that a fun day of crafting does not turn into a not so fun day at the eye doctor. So I'm going to line this up, and I'm actually going to be using the tape to hold it in place just so that it's in the exact right place. That magnetic cutting mat is really cool and holds stuff in place, but it can shift very easily if you just move the top plate a little bit, so it's not super strong magnetic wise. So when in doubt, use some tape, and you'll see I'm going to use tape to cut out my images too, just because there's very little wiggle room for getting it wrong. So here is the window cut out, and I really love that that die cuts the stitching detail on the outside of the window. It cuts it on the inside as well, so that piece there that's still in the die I can keep for a future project, because it's kind of like a little tag. So you get a little more wear or use, I should say, out of your dice. So I'm just folding all my score lines here, and I'm going to be putting the adhesive on those little tabs that you see me folding down, and that is how the box is going to form. So I'm going to be using a super strong adhesive. I believe this is the Ultra adhesive by Scrapbook Adhesives, so it's supposed to hold really well, and I want to use that just a little bit on each of those little tabs. It is a little hard to break off, so you kind of have to pull it really hard, but it sticks a lot better than some of the other adhesives, like the little dots and everything. So when you want a project like this that's a box to really stay together, this is the one I like to use. So you're just going to stick those to the front and the back of the box there, and then here is the box formed, so that's super easy there. Now the idea behind this project, to make it a little different, was to have a different plaid peeking through the window. So a different plaid actually in the bottom of the box, so that whatever's in the box, a gift card or candy or whatever, you don't see till you remove that thing that there's this different plaid with the sentiment in the bottom. So I'm actually going to use this zigzag rectangle. This is the next to smallest one, I believe, and it fits right in there perfectly. So not only will we have a piece of plaid paper in the bottom, but it'll have a nice little zigzag edge detail to it as well. You could just cut this to the same size as the box if you didn't have this die, but I think this adds a nice touch. I'm going to use that same adhesive, and I'll be honest, I kind of wish I had stuck this in there before I made the box. But you're going to see here in a little bit, I'm actually going to take this box apart because there's another part that I forgot to do before I stuck this down, and I used the really sticky adhesive so I couldn't really pull it up and correct my mistake. What I wanted to do was have a sentiment stamped on that piece of plaid so that when you remove the contents of the box, then you saw the sentiment. And it's really hard to stamp down in a box when it's put together, so I'm very carefully pulling those tabs apart. It happens that they came apart really easy, but at least here it would be a part that we're sticking back together. So hopefully if it tore, it wouldn't tear too bad. But I got lucky and it came apart pretty well. So now I can flatten my box back out so I can stamp my sentiment. So I'm using the happy and the birthday from this year 2 mini set. I like the font of these and they're really nice and fat letters. So when I stamp it in some black ink, it's not going to get lost in that very busy rainbow plaid on the back. So I'm going to use some black licorice ink here, and I'm just going to stamp it right in the center of that rainbow plaid piece. This would have been a lot easier to do maybe if I'd done it before it was in the box. If you have trouble getting things straight, you want to stamp this maybe using a MISTI before you stick it in the box. But like I said, I made a couple mistakes, and these were the ways to go back and salvage my project. Now I'm cutting a piece of acetate with the same zigzag die, and I actually cut it with a piece of just scrap white cardstock behind it to keep it from picking up all the little shards of paper that happen to be on my cutting plates because they're pretty used, but this kept it nice and clean. And I'm just going to adhere it with some glue dots in each corner here. You could use some double-sided tape as well. Just whatever works for you. I just thought this might be the easiest. And then you don't have to cut it with a zigzag die, it's the same size, and so it kind of has a nice little edge detail on the inside of the box as well, since you will see that plastic when you open the box. Alright, so now for the cute little images to decorate. And I'm going to do this in super fast speed so you can see everything. I'm using the little dog from the Happy Halloween set. I just think that he's super cute and he's like my little Penny. But I'm going to make him a birthday dog. So now I'm going to use some of the pieces from Party Animal. And I'm going to stamp out a whole lot more than I actually use because I wasn't sure, which hat I wanted to use or which accessories. So I'm going to stamp out the hats. I'm going to stamp out the cake, the present, and the party horns. I'm also going to stamp out one of the little birds and the balloon as well. And I'm stamping all of these out in the jet black ink because I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring. So like I said, I've got a few more here that I'm actually going to use. I didn't end up using the party horns at all, and I only used one of the little birds. But here I'm going to do some pretty easy Copic coloring. And starting with my dog, I'm just laying down a layer of some very light brown. So E21, I'm going to go back in with the E23. Most of that really pale brown is going to get covered up, but I just like to have a base to start with. And then I'm just putting in a little bit of shading under his neck and on the bottom with some darker browns, and then I will go back with the lighter ones and start blending it out. And I was a little heavy-handed with this one today, so it kind of bled out of the lines a little bit, and I had to go back and try and push some of that color back in with the colorless blender, which kind of worked halfway. And then you'll see later I actually go and fix it with a white gel pen. But very simple shading on the dog. And the light kind of made it look a little funny there, so he ended up being a lot darker than I really wanted him to, but that's okay. And I'm actually going to go in with a very dark brown and add a little bit of spots to him. Just for a little bit more interest. So now I can go ahead and color my little accessories here. So I decided to go with polka dot hat, and I'm trying to pick out some colors that kind of match the rainbow colors in my background. So I've got a purple, which is B15, excuse me, and then this YG23 for that very bright green. And here is where I'm trying to push that color back towards the dog because it kind of bled out past the lines slightly. It worked a little bit. I'll have to go back again. I got an RB21 here. I'm going to make a pink balloon, RB23, just for a little bit of shading on the bottom. I didn't want my balloon to be too dark. I wanted him to kind of look still transparent. So, and then I'm going to color a little bird here. And I decided that particular yellow was a little brighter than I wanted. So I want him a little more muted. I don't want him to look like a Easter chicken quite so much. So I went in with the Y21 and then a little bit of shading on the bottom with a YR23, and I'll blend that out. He needs a little fixing with a white gel pen. When all else fails, the white gel pen fixes it. Just go right up to the edge of the line and you'll never know that brown bled out. So a little orange beak for my bird here, and I'm going to color his hat in some pinks and some purples. And then lastly, I finally decided I think I was just going to do the cake because I think the cake would look really cute sitting right in front of the dog. So I'm going back in with some of the colors I've already used. And then I'm going to grab a teal here for the candle because I haven't brought that color in just yet. And then I'm going to use all the coordinating dies to cut out all these little pieces here. And I will use tape to hold those in place. Like I said, that magnetic plate is pretty good, but when you're using little things, it's best to use some tape. So now I'm just going to assemble some of my pieces and put that hat on his head using some liquid glue. And I'm going to go ahead and put the cake right in front of him. He's getting ready to blow out the candle. So he's ready to put on the box here in just a few minutes. And I'm going to use glue dots to do that since I'm having to stick it to some acetate. I don't think the liquid glue would work very well. So I've put a bunch of glue dots all over the back of him, and I'm just going to stick it down with the glue dots because that's going to stick to the acetate really well. I'm going to do the same with the other pieces. I'm not going to worry about the string of the balloon, but I am going to put 2 glue dots on the balloon itself so it's nice and stuck down in that top right corner. And then the little chicken, I guess I don't know if he's a chicken or a bird, whatever he is. I colored him yellow so he looks like a chicken. Put him down here in the corner. He's sort of holding the balloon, but not really. But just to balance it out. And that way they frame up the sentiment inside nicely. And I can't do anything without adding a little bit of shimmer. So some clear Spectrum Noir sparkle to the hats and the candle and the balloon. And then finally I added a glue dot to the top and a little bit of twine. and tied in a bow. And I'm going to trim the tails off so that they're not covering up my cute little images that I added here. And then that is the finished box. So here's a look at it, full of some candy. And then, of course, once you open it up and get all the goodies inside, you get to see the sentiment. Thanks for watching. Have an amazing day. Bye.